Hello, all. In the next episode of People of Nature podcast, today we have with us Vidhi Modi, all the way from Gujarat. Vidhi is a young conservationist who is trying hard to do research on grassland birds. And of course, she'll talk more about that. So, welcome Vidhi to the podcast.
Thank you, Pankaj, for inviting me to this podcast.
So, Vidhi has been working as a research fellow, senior research fellow at the Kutch division of the Corbett Foundation. She has 5 years of work experience in the field of ecology, where she has also served as a project fellow at the Wildlife Institute of India for a year. She has completed her master's in environmental science and education from Bharati Vidyapeeth University, Pune. As a young researcher, she is pursuing her PhD from MK Bhavnagar University, focusing on the impact of overhead power lines on avian species in Kutch, Gujarat. So over the last 4 years, she has focused on the conservation of grasslands and their associated species like the great Indian bustard, lesser florican, and cranes. She has also been a part of the team that conducted satellite telemetry studies of lesser florican, cranes, flamingos, raptors, and hornbills. She has been a co-author of several scientific publications published in peer-reviewed international journals. She believes involving local communities is the only solution to achieve the long-term goal of wildlife conservation. And she thinks that the semi-arid grasslands of India are a highly neglected ecosystem that needs to be highlighted as the biodiversity associated with it is facing rapid decline. So, Vidhi, it's very interesting, bio that you share, and taking the last line of your bio that you're mentioning that the grasslands is one of the most neglected ecosystems in India. I would like to now direct my
Yeah.
questions towards grasslands and birds that you study. Okay, so
Yeah.
here is my first question for you, Vidhi. So most of your
Okay.
research work, of course, involves birds. So when did you get interested in bird watching?
Okay, so let me start from here that actually I spent my childhood in the city of Vadodara, which is in Gujarat,
Okay.
with a moderate
Yeah.
access to nature.
Mhm.
And however, when I went to study environmental sciences in Pune at Bharati Vidyapeeth, it opened my eyes to several wonders of nature because their campus is designed so well that it attracted various bird species. And
Mhm.
I met some people, colleagues, and friends that were interested in bird watching. And with them, I quickly delved into this bird watching. The
Okay.
very first species that I would say that I read about in detail was the red whiskered bulbul.
Oh, I
And
see.
it sparked a passion for ornithology in me. And this passion took me further and dedicated and I dedicated myself to learn more about birds and their habitats. And
I
so
see.
this
I
is
see.
how I have
Mhm.
come into this field and got interested in bird watching.
I see. So it comes from the friends that you had. If you had good
Yeah.
friends, good bird watchers, you'll be a good bird watcher. Is that so?
Yeah, I'm still in a learning phase, but yeah,
Right.
I'm good at some some birds, yeah.
Okay, great, great to know that. So you have
Thank
mentioned
you.
that while you were at WI, one of the
Yeah.
projects that you were involved was the impact assessment of Nagpur Mumbai Expressway. So
Yes.
what are the best practices, to mitigate such impacts on of development projects on wildlife? What do you think about it?
Okay. Okay. So let me start we all know that India is a developing nation and
Yeah.
it needs development with growing technologies around the world. And
Mhm.
I would say that there is no way we can completely eradicate the impact of linear infrastructures that impacts the wildlife. But we can definitely minimize this impact through some scientific measures and mitigations. Now,
Yeah.
when we talk about the linear infrastructures like roads, so our country stands second largest in road network in the world,
Oh,
which is a
okay.
worrisome issue. And for that, we need to what I think is we can adopt some green practices, like practices of
Mhm.
green infrastructure, where
Okay.
critical areas having significant biodiversity should be preserved through alternatives, like you can say rerouting of roads, or
Hmm.
you build underpasses or
Yeah.
overpasses or some box culverts that would contribute to the lowering the impact on wildlife. As far
Yeah.
as this roads are concerned, this is what we can do to mitigate the impacts. While when we talk about this power lines, so we all know that power lines are a great concern, and their
Yes.
worst impact is the high mortality of birds due to collision with this overhead transmission lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we talk about birds, this is the scenario, but in the case of mammals like elephants,
Hmm. Hmm.
their mortality is mostly associated with electrocution. Correct.
Yeah.
Now, the foolproof mitigative measure for these power lines is undergrounding these power lines that
Yes.
pass through priority wilderness areas.
Yeah.
However, lines which are passing through potential or say buffer areas may be
Hmm.
replaced with some insulated aerial bunch cables and marked with bird flight diverters.
Okay.
So, also this bird flight diverters, I
Hmm.
would say that should be designed in a way and positioned based on the vision of birds and
Right.
not on
Right.
vision of humans.
Yeah.
So, also, whatever I have read till date, I have read many things about undergrounding the power lines in the cities, mainly for their beautification. The
Right.
same, so we have been very successful actually in undergrounding the power lines in the cities, mainly
I see.
for beautification progress, right?
Yes.
Now, yeah, so I think the same step is imperative for our natural landscapes, as our wildlife as well as ecotourism both depend on them. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe,
That's
Pankaj, that yeah, because that all things are connected to this wildlife, correct? At
yes.
last, and I believe such mitigation should be planned well in advance.
Right. So
And one
I
more,
really feel that that's really insightful. So what, Vidhi, you are saying about linear infrastructure, I think it's pretty prominent in a country like India, and definitely
yes.
we need to think seriously about it. So what do you say?
Yeah, and I also feel that uh, we should plan well in advance for such
Yes.
mitigations, and their associated expenditure should be included in the actual project cost, and must
Yeah.
not be highlighted as an extra cost to the taxpayers, like building culverts or underpasses, overpasses, or undergrounding
Yeah.
power lines should not be highlighted as an extra cost to preserve our
Yeah.
precious wildlife.
Yeah, that's pretty true. That it has to be integrated into the planning itself, and not something that
Yes.
we are paying as an extra thing. So
Correct.
that's pretty insightful, Vidhi. I'll go to my next question. And since your work is pretty much aligned with grassland conservation, I would like to ask you what conservation policy and action changes must happen to protect these biodiversity-rich ecosystems called as grasslands.
Okay, so this is a very interesting and an important question, I would say, first of all.
Mhm.
So, according to me, the inappropriate appellation of wastelands that is given to our precious grasslands during the
Yes.
colonial period is affecting these ecosystems. Like,
Yeah.
owing to this, the grasslands are easily given away for anthropogenic activities or for development purposes. Like in
Yeah.
the last century only, we have lost about 20 million hectares of grasslands, which is an
Oh,
area equivalent to Gujarat state. Now
yeah.
that's a
That's
huge
huge.
number. Yeah.
Yes.
And on the contrary, our livestock population has increased sixfold, and
Yeah.
it may further double in the next few decades.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to understand that when the country's 70% of rural population depends on
Mhm.
livestock for their livelihood, then
Yeah.
our communities, their livelihood, and also wildlife epitomize these grasslands and are like, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So it is scientifically proven that
Mm.
grasslands are a better carbon sink and helps in mitigating the climate change. So
Yes.
I would suggest that the well-intended but ill-informed practices that we carry out of planting tree saplings in grassland ecosystems should be prohibited. And efforts to preserve grasslands would make the villages as well as our country a self-sustainable in regards to fodder supply.
Right.
So, one example I would say here is that it is very sad to say that a
Mhm.
district like Kutch, which used to
Yeah.
be like one of the largest grasslands in Asia, now imports
Mhm.
fodder from the other parts of the state, or are
Oh,
dependent
really?
on government. Yeah,
Okay.
or they are dependent on the government supply during the scarcity period.
Right.
So, according to me, India surely needs some grassland and grazing policies. And I'm
Yeah.
quite sure, that the committee appointed by the National Board for Wildlife will focus on this issue while designing the plan for grassland conservation. So, this is
Yeah.
all I want to say about this.
Wow. That's huge, right? I mean, so many things
Yeah,
happening at one of those neglected ecosystems, and many of us
yes,
are not even aware.
aware,
So
yeah,
that's really unfortunate.
yeah, it's too much
So,
fun.
very, grassland conservation, I think, has been, getting more and more attention nowadays. A lot of
Yes,
people are talking about it. But
yes.
it's just you're working there, and personal experience. How
Hmm.
involved are the local communities in the grassland conservation in Gujarat, and
Hmm.
what do you think can be done, to increase this community participation?
Okay, so Pankaj, I would say that I already told earlier that the livelihood
Yeah.
of rural population depends on livestock, and
Yes.
the degradation or alteration of these grasslands will affect the pastoralist communities badly. So I would
Correct. Yeah.
say that I have been working with the Corbett Foundation in Kutch for the last 4 years, and
Mhm.
I'm very well versed about the demography of Kutch. So,
Yeah.
taking Kutch as an example, I would say that the density of livestock here is almost double that than that of humans.
Yeah.
So that's like 100 cows per square kilometer and 50 humans per square kilometer.
Yes.
And therefore, yeah, so and therefore the villagers are always in support of grassland restoration work. They are easily and readily involved in such programs that are run by the foundation, like the Corbett Foundation.
Okay.
And one example I would give here is the Kanakpur village. So, Kanakpur village is situated in Abdasa Taluka of Kutch,
Mhm.
where the villagers, that is the local communities of a village, have restored the degraded pasture with scientific inputs from the Corbett Foundation.
Oh, I
And
see.
yeah, and from the last 7 years, they have been managing 52 acres of grasslands through a rotational and controlled grazing system.
Okay.
And you won't believe they have achieved an annual production of 2000 to 3000 kg of grass per hectare.
Wow,
Like
that's
just a
amazing.
small patch of area. Yeah.
Wow, that's really a positive note. If
Yeah. And
community is involved in such kind of activities.
yes, and this has not only made the village self sustainable for fodder supply, but has immensely even contributed to the conservation of biodiversity associated with grasslands.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
I think people should visit this village to understand such self sustainable models and learn
Correct.
from them and replicate them in their respective areas in order to protect and conserve our grasslands ecosystem.
Yeah. So I think we need more such models, more such
Models, yeah,
processes to be established, so that we'll have more positive stories about community participation and conservation. So
correct.
thanks a lot, Vidhi, for sharing that. Now let me move towards a little bit personal questions about your career.
Okay,
And
yeah,
since you mentioned that while you were doing masters, your friends were the ones
yeah,
who motivated to you to go into bird watching and all.
yes.
So I think it's been many years that you are in the field. And
Yeah.
what aspects of working in the wildlife field do you enjoy the most?
So I would say for me, working in the field itself gives me immense joy and pleasure. Like I can sit for
Mhm.
long hours observing birds. And I feel that, like, yeah, I can totally sit for hours and hours just to observe birds, do nothing else. So that is what gives me some real joy and pleasure. And
Yeah,
with it also, it boosts my strength to give my best
right.
efforts for this field. And
Yeah,
I would say, as an emerging ecologist, I feel that being in the lap of nature is the biggest incentive one may get. And
very
it
true.
would bring us closer to nature and help us understand how interwoven the web of nature is. So
Yeah,
I feel like, and it provides me a sense of responsibility as an individual to protect our mother nature and work for its preservation. So this is what I feel is the best thing that I enjoy working in the field.
great. I can totally relate. I mean, just sitting
Yes,
somewhere and watching birds,
somewhere.
watching insects.
Yeah.
I think that just gives
Watching,
you, a
listening.
lot of pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
True,
mean,
true.
just being in the forest, just being in, not just forest, right, anywhere as such,
Anyway,
and
yeah.
just amazing experience that one should, have.
Co- correct.
So my next question is just connected with this. Of course, you are in the
Okay.
field and you are daily experiencing perhaps this, luxury of, listening to birds, watching them. But
Yes.
in your career so far, what has
Hmm.
been the happiest moment?
Wow. So I would say the happiest moment of my career so far was my first sighting of a great Indian bustard. That too on a
Oh,
foggy winter morning at the Nalia Grasslands in Kutch. It's in Kutch.
great!
And I feel like blessed to have seen all the three species of bustards. That is the Great
Wow,
Indian bustard, Lesser Florican, and Asian Hubara in the same landscape, just
wow,
within a span
amazing,
of a year. Yeah. And
amazing.
I think it will remain one of my happiest moments as I have been able to work on a critically endangered species and I have
Yeah,
also experienced seeing it in the field.
right.
So this will be my happiest moment. And other than this, one more I would say that I
Mhm.
feel immensely lucky to be a part of the team that conducted satellite telemetry of various bird species in Gujarat. So
Right.
these are my lifetime experiences and I'll cherish them for lifetime, I guess. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, in a year, you saw all the three different
All the three
bustards.
species. Yes.
That just
Yes.
must have been like an amazing year for you.
The best year, I would say.
Yeah, but coming to the sad reality of the grasslands, and especially the
Yeah.
grassland birds, like the bustard that you mentioned, it's facing a severe threat, and its conservation action is pretty much needed for all these birds, but not just
Hmm.
bustard, various different types of grassland birds, even the small ones, they
Yes.
need conservation attention. So, in
True.
your opinion, what conservation plan would you suggest for such grassland birds?
So for that, I like for this conservation plan, I already told that there needs to be some policies
Mhm.
associated with grassland conservation. Like there
Yeah,
needs to be a plan, a
yeah,
designing of a plan that just particularly focuses on grasslands. I
right.
think this is what is the need of the hour.
Yeah, but to be specific, it cannot be a blanket plan, right? It has to be a
Yeah.
case specific, region specific plan, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, yes. It should be region specific as well as I think there it should be even species specific sometimes.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
main species or the focused species, which are the main species
right.
of that particular ecosystem.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah, that is what I feel should be done.
right. So, I mean, of course, it needs a lot of work, to be done in that field.
Yes,
And since you were mentioning that your PhD topic, again, it's a very interesting
yes,
PhD topic.
Yeah,
because
thank you.
you are studying the bird mortality due to the infrastructure, linear infrastructure, power lines. And
Yes.
while we are discussing this, I guess on the other hand, the government and many organizations are promoting wind
Hmm.
energy.
Yes.
And you know, uh, one of the types could be the windmills or the solar panels, right? So,
Yeah.
but there is also a lot of research happening on how the windmill, bird mortality, right?
Yes.
So, have you done any work related to that, or what is your opinion about it?
Actually, I would say I haven't like really worked on this windmill or solar plant things.
Okay.
And I guess every linear infrastructure have effects or impacts on different wildlife, correct?
Right.
So, as I earlier said, that getting or minimizing this impacts is the only thing which we can do through some scientific measures and mitigations.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. So, Vidya, I'll come to my last question. And again, I think
Okay.
it's a very interesting question for all our audience. But
Okay.
before we end, I would like to once again thank you for being on this People of Nature podcast.
I thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
being there.
Thank
So,
you for
here is my
providing
last.
me this opportunity.
Yeah, we are very happy to have people like you on the podcast, because many
Thank
times we don't hear what happens in the field, and it just goes in the
Yes, yes,
papers and essays and reports, and
absolutely correct.
layman doesn't have access to it. So
Yes.
thank you once again, Vidhi, for being with us.
Yeah.
So here is my last question.
Okay.
So you have started your PhD after working on various research positions.
Yeah.
So for all young aspiring PhD candidates, especially in the wildlife field,
Hmm.
what would be your message? So this is one question, and the second question is, how different do you think is working on a PhD versus doing a job, in research domain?
Hmm.
So these are two last questions.
Okay. So that's a great question, and I would like to give some messages to the people who are aspiring people who want to come and join this field. So,
Yeah.
I would just quote one thing that wildlife conservation can never be a job. It's a way of living. Like, if you are in
Right.
this sector, never ever feel that you are doing a job. Because I assume it's our moral duty to contribute
Right.
in conservation. And
Hmm.
as far as PhD is concerned, I feel it gives me immense satisfaction and happiness, because there are very limited students who opt for this sector due to the
Yeah.
commitment and physical strength it requires.
Yes.
And the work that you will do will contribute in safeguarding habitats of those who cannot speak for themselves, right? And
Yes. Very
there
true.
cannot be anything better than saving a species or a wilderness area for the next generation to see. Because if we don't do, I don't think they would be able to see or experience what we are experiencing right now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And the next question which you asked, like how different it is and what message
Yes.
I would say. So, as far as the difference between a researcher and a PhD candidate is concerned, I feel there is an additional sense of responsibility as a PhD
Mhm.
candidate because it
Yeah.
gives you opportunities to observe things around you, understand them from a different perspective, and
Yeah.
lastly, it helps you in shaping your life, like your own life. It shapes your life.
Very true.
So this is
Definitely.
what I have. Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
what one difference
That's
I feel.
that's wonderful, Vidhi. That's really amazing words. So I
And
would like to.
the the last
Yeah,
thing that
yeah,
you
go ahead.
asked
Yes.
to give a message to the younger people.
Yes.
So I am too young to give a message actually, but what I feel is in this digital era, people are going away from books and the habit
Yes.
of reading.
Yeah.
And to be an aspiring researcher or pursue PhD, reading is a matchless choice. As it as
Exactly.
review of literature will help you a lot in understanding your subject of interest. like be it
Yeah.
any species or habitat, whatever it is. So moreover, it helps in improving your writing skills too. And
Right.
uh, the last thing I would say is have patience because to have patience during the course of this journey is really necessary, as nature also takes its own time to unveil in front of you, correct? So
Yes.
having patience is the key, I guess, and reading, lots of reading.
Yeah, yeah. I
That
mean,
is what I
whatever
would
you
like
are
to
saying,
convey.
I can completely relate with it. Books, you need a lot of books, and be for birds, you need a lot of birds around you. That's how
Yes,
you
yes,
do your
true.
PhD.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Vidhi. It was nice time talking to you, and thanks once
Thank
again
you so
for being
much,
on this platform.
Pankaj. Thank you so much, Pankaj. It was, I would also like to extend my thanks to the People of Nature podcast for giving me this opportunity to come to this platform and speak about my experiences with you all. And I really look forward to listening to other people who are on this podcast. And also, I would like to thank Arijit for well managing and coordinating things. So,
Yes,
thank you very much for providing me
it's
this
a,
opportunity,
it's a
really.
it's a teamwork. So thanks a lot. On behalf of the
Thank,
team.
thank you so much, Pankaj. It was really nice